right, welcome to the Policy Committee. We're about to get started. So first item is to approve the meeting agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion.
Motion.
A second.
Okay, that's a second. You gonna make yours now?
I'd like to make a motion to amend the agenda. I'd like to move number 4 to the fourth item to number 1. Number two. So that would be the first item we work on.
Do I have a second on that?
Second.
Hearing no abstain or negatives, motion passes. All right, so now we'll vote on the agenda as modified. Do I have any motions on that?
Motion to accept it as modified.
All right.
Second.
All right. Okay. Hearing no abstentions or negatives, motion approved. All right. This is the first policy meeting after the anniversary for the policy committee. Glad to see that everybody is here, and at this point in time, I'm opening up for any public discussion on policy committee. All right, since there's no public discussion on policy committee, we're going to move on to the now item number 2, which is policy. It's on the agenda as item 4. I believe there was a previous statement made during a board meeting about having the reorganization meeting for the policy committee to review the charter and figure out if any changes need to be done to the charter. Would that be correct?
That is correct.
All right. So do I have any discussion on the charter?
There's two things I noticed. That I'm not sure if they've been changed in the past, but in my copy of the charter anyway, under heading number 3, subpoint number 3, community members. I don't believe there's any community members on the committee, so I was just curious whether we wanted to leave that as is, which would mean including community members coming up, or whether we should change that. And also the meeting schedule, so it'd be heading number 5. The committee shall meet on the second Thursday of every month is how the charter reads, and I don't think we've had a meeting on Thursday at all, so perhaps we should amend that as well.
Is there any other input?
I just have a point of information on that topic. I did look back at the original charter as was approved by the board, and they did have that crossed out on that actual agenda item for the board. So number 3, under item number 3, composition of community members, that had been scratched out of the original. I had the original copy without those crossed outs as well. So, and then also at the end, starting with item 11 and on down, the call for letters of interest, and the rest of the way down, all of that had been scratched on the original charter approval by the board. So things are already taken out. Those things kind of didn't apply after we removed the community members. So they were already gone. And I do agree with David's point on the meeting schedule under 5. Rather than stating that it should be the second Thursday, I would make a motion to propose that we change that first sentence to meetings should occur monthly as a group and advertised by the board. And then that still allows the board to have the say on what the actual schedule ends up being.
All right, and then the particular question that was had last board meeting was on expenditures by the committee. As far as I know, the committee itself had only approved 3 items to be reviewed by the solicitor. Is that recollection correct, Julie?
Pretty close. I didn't look back to count all of them. There was not that many. I do believe there was some, there must have been some sent off to the solicitor between the public comments that were made and the superintendent, maybe president, agreed to send them off to the solicitor, but they were not voted on by the policy committee to actually be sent. So perhaps that happened prematurely.
Okay, and I know the language on it is, it gives the chair of the committee, which would be me right now, and the superintendent the power to refer policies directly to the solicitor. Is that correct?
Yes, that is what it says currently under number 6, under responsibilities. Item number 6 reads, ensure that all proposed policy changes adhere to legal requirements and are consistent with the district's mission, vision, and values. Second sentence in that number 6 says, legal review by the solicitor can be done on request of the chair and the superintendent. And then number 7 says, present recommendations to the full Board of Education for discussion and approval. So as the charter is written, it would imply that the policy chair and superintendent would be the ones to send them off to the solicitor for review, which would be in conflict with the amendment as proposed, as on the agenda tonight for the board meeting.
And David, my understanding was that these were put on the charter during the original charter discussions because public comment was made, well, who's going to send it to the solicitor? And to help with the public's concerns, we had the board being able to send it to the solicitor and the committee sending it to the solicitor and the superintendent solicitor. Was that your understanding as well?
I recall concern that there would not be solicitor input in our legal review, professional review, should the policy committee take over some of the responsibility of reviewing policies. So yes, I would agree with that.
All right. Considering the motion, not the motion, but the statement that was made last board meeting, do any of you two have any possible amendments to that might satisfy better cost constraints moving ahead in the future?
I do. I will just add personally that I do see a need for some guardrails to be put on spending for a policy committee like this. I could see that another group in this position may not have the same work ethic that Seth Corman does and would not have the creativity and ability to write up policies and find them. It does take a lot of work to do. So I can imagine in the future, if we were replaced by others, they may have people sitting in these seats that would say, oh, let's review these 5 policies, motion to send them to the solicitor. And so if that was the case, that would rack up quite the bill rather quickly if they were unwilling to do the work themselves and just trust the solicitor to do that at the district's expense. So that being said, I was looking at the numbers here, how they already are worded. I was thinking that under that number 6 that I had read, where it says legal review by the solicitor, if we just cut the rest of that sentence and say legal review by the solicitor, and then add will be the responsibility of the board. When a policy is developed and ready for review, only by a majority vote of the board can solicitor expenses be incurred for policy, which then would cut out charges on policy to be done by anyone other than a full vote of the board. It could happen that there might be others in the position to send things off to the solicitor that would not be approved by the entire board. So if we cut that down to the board has to approve it before it goes to the solicitor, that would squelch the cries from the community as we're working on policies that when is this going to be seen, the fear that when is this going to be seen by the solicitor, and then we can work through the proper policy, send it to the board, and they can choose to send it to the solicitor. I mean, that's one possible option.
Did you have anything to add to that, David?
I don't think so. In order to accommodate the request of the board member that made that request, I'm I don't see and really a whole lot of other options besides what Joey said.
My only issue is it would create a burdensome process on the committee to try to get work done, but we can get things up to final draft to be reviewed without going to a solicitor, and then the solicitor can give recommendations on that if the board feels that that is necessary. So I don't see an issue with changing it to that wording. Do you want to make a motion to amend the charter to include that?
Yes, I will make a motion to amend as stated.
Okay. And do we have a motion to amend for the other topic that David brought up?
You're specifically talking about the schedule.
Yeah.
A motion to amend the number 5, the meeting schedule, to read: the committee shall meet monthly.
I think one meeting should occur monthly as advertised and approved by the board.
So
That's how I stated.
yeah, I think Joey did state that the committee shall meet monthly, as advertised and approved by the board.
Is that different than what is presently published for 25-26?
That would have no effect on 25-26, but what the current language in the charter had would have been different than what was actually being
We're not going to
done.
meet in July necessarily.
Not going to meet July necessarily. It would be as approved.
That's fine.
Correct.
It's just that as it reads right now, it says on Thursday at 6 p.m.
Right.
And so we haven't been following that, so I suggest we change it.
Thank you.
All right, and so I'm going to group those all changes into one motion, since that's the way we've been doing it. Do I have the motion to submit those changes to the board for approval?
Motion.
Second?
All right, do I hear any abstain or negatives? Nope, motion passes. All right, the second item on our agenda tonight was going to be the HBHC school-based health center policy. It's now item number 3. We're going to go ahead and hit that a little bit. All right, taking in some feedback from the community, I think it would be imperative that we do add a first aid exclusion in the policy, so that, you know, cough drops and Band-Aids can actually be given the kids. Do we have any suggestions for wording of that, or?
I did write something down for that, which could be changed under the exemptions section.
Okay.
That might fit. I had written basic first aid care rendered in the classroom by knowledgeable staff, meaning this is under the word exemption shall not apply to. Basic first aid care rendered in the classroom by knowledgeable staff. Parent must be notified of any first aid rendered. And then that's not going to change their current practices. The basic things, and I would imagine they would already let the parents know, things like that.
All right. And I had put down, nothing in this policy shall prohibit school personnel from administering basic, non-invasive first aid to students, including but not limited to the application of adhesive bandages, the distribution of parent-provided cough drops, or other minor health interventions that do not require clinical judgment or diagnosis. Such as first aid measures shall be limited to temporary immediate care to ensure student comfort and safety, conducted in accordance with any district health guidelines and parental instructions, and not considered outpatient mental health or medical services under this policy.
Much more complete. Where are we going to put that? Under which section?
That would be under the exemption section again.
Exemptions, okay. That was 15. I
So
would,
if a student needs if a student needs a Tylenol, are you saying, excuse me, if a student needs a Tylenol, are you saying that they're gonna have to call the parents and get permission before they can do that? But the parent has already signed the form ahead of time that they could actually get that Tylenol and the parent wouldn't need to be notified?
Yeah, then the parent wouldn't need to be notified.
that's
So
under
you
the
And-
policy already, which
Yeah.
I think they do generally notify the parent, but that would fall under what's already there under exemptions, the duties of school nurses.
Okay.
That's already policies that's addressed under.
So if the parent has already given you permission, they don't necessarily need to revisit that because the parent has given permission and the nurse feels is warranted.
Yeah, and that's also why that's why it also was put in there, conducted in accordance with any district health guidelines and parental instructions.
So EpiPens, Tylenol, aspirin, something that the child needs, maybe they have severe headaches, that's all acceptable.
That's all acceptable.
It's not covering the nurse.
Okay.
Yeah, that automatically doesn't cover the nurse, and the nurse would be the one with the EpiPen. We were also asked to look into whether or not it affected IEP programs. Now, my opinion is it doesn't affect IEP programs because IEP programs stand outside of normal policy to begin with. But as we were asked to look into it, and with some information from some stakeholders, we decided that we should put in an IEP and an IDEA and a 504 and an Act 53 and a SAP and behavioral interventions exceptions into there. Does that sound good? I believe I sent those to everybody, so if you've looked over them, I will read out what it is to the public so they know what it was, since I just sent it to you guys today. Coordination with legally mandated service and referrals. This policy shall not override or limit any services required under a student's individual education plan, IEP under IDEA, Section 504 plan, rehabilitation plan under Act 53 or similar law, referral through student assistant program, SAP, or other legally mandated services arising from child find or behavioral intervention processes. Where mental health services delivered by external providers intersect with the support such plans, the district shall ensure appropriate coordination between the provider and the IEP 504 SAP team with parental consent as required by law. All referrals made as part of the legal process shall be documented in accordance with the IDEA and Section 504 procedural safeguards. Do we have any issues with that?
I have no issues with how it
No,
reads.
I would make a motion to add that as well.
Where are we? Okay. All right. And another new section I sent to you guys that was suggested for us to add was a prescription medication. External providers operating under this policy shall not dispense or store any prescription medication on district property. Any medications prescribed as a result of a mental health evaluation must be managed in accordance with existing district medication administration policies and Pennsylvania Department of Health regulations. The district shall not be responsible for storing or administering medications prescribed by external mental health providers unless authorized by the parent guardian and coordinated with the school nurse under applicable law. Does that sound?
So we're basically putting that, my understanding is correct, we're basically putting the dispensing of prescription medication in the hands of the nurse should the students need that at school.
Correct.
Am I understanding that correctly?
Which is how it is now. So prescription medications are dispensed by the nurse.
I agree
I have no
with
problem
having
with
that
that.
safeguard in there so that that doesn't end up being taken over or partly handled by a provider that would be coming into the building. That should continue to be handled by the school nurse. I agree with that.
You're right. And there were some changes that were suggested for Section 8. I believe it has to do with insurance. And I think there was also a suggestion made by Board Member Julie about Policy 913. Do I have any recommendations on there?
Yes. it could be added under number 8. Follow boundaries and referral training required under policy 913 to prevent confusion between school-sponsored and non-school sponsored activities.
All right. Would you make a motion to add that?
I would.
I think the next part was Big Spring School District shall be named as an additional insurer on each contracted service provider's general liability and professional liability EO insurance policies. Copies of the same shall be provided to the district by the contracted service provider. And that, from what I understand, that is to protect the school district. Do we have any motion to add that language?
Motion to add that as well.
All right.
Another item I think maybe could be added under this liability section, but I don't know if it was addressed elsewhere. An item that reads, the district or staff shall not receive any incentive from provider for referrals. That should already be covered under some of our other policies. But I think it could be added into this one, particularly because in the medical field, that is a common practice.
All right. Do you see any issues with that, David?
I have no issues with that. I would agree with Jolie.
Do you want to make a motion and then send me a copy of that language?
I will, yeah. Motion to add, let's say it one more time. The district or staff shall not receive any incentive from provider or referrals. Sorry.
Under bullet 3 there, you're specifically, bullet 2, under identification liability, you're specifically reaching out to one service. Should we remove the word Campbell and say that no agency should assume the duties of an employee and be mistaken for a district employee? It seems like if you're not Campbell, then you'd be okay.
Yeah, I think that's a good change to make it a blanket for any organization operating within this.
Maybe even the name tab has to say such, but not, I don't know, well, you have to put no, not a district employee, but if a parent comes in and needs to talk to someone, they should realize whether it's a school employee or not.
Yeah, I would go a step further and say we should remove any mention of Campbell altogether out of the policy. Does that make sense?
I would agree with that. Make it a more generic term, like third party or organization.
Would you like to make that motion, Mr. Wardle?
Am I allowed to? as
Yeah.
chair? Yes, I would make that motion that any reference to a specific agency should be removed in the district policy under the basic health service and outpatient mental health, that we're not identifying, supporting, nor not supporting any specific entity.
Yep. All right. And since we're running short of time, we're going to add everything left on the agenda, including continuing work on this policy, to old business on the next agenda, and we're going to wrap it up tonight. So do I have a motion to accept all the current changes as they were stated and make those modifications for the next meeting?
Motion.
Second.
Do I hear any abstain or negative? All right, motion passes. All right, we're going to move on to the second public comment period. Is there anybody who would like to comment on what has happened here tonight so far?
Seth, I just got a question. I just want to make sure I understand about the over-the-counter medication with the nurse. So if my first grader has a headache, the nurse can administer that medication without a phone call coming home?
I'm going to clarify that that's okay.
The,
It's going to follow whatever they're doing now, which should be a phone call coming
Okay.
up.
Okay.
As far as I know, without
Yeah.
seeing their policy in front of me, I believe that is their current policy.
Okay.
So we have, and we review and approve annually a list of medications that's their standard meds that they were allowed to give. based on their judgment in the situation. And you as a parent at the very beginning of the year
I know.
will sign off on that, whether yes, I want to allow that, or no, I do not want to allow that. So if a parent says, no, I don't want my child to have Tylenol or ibuprofen or
Okay, I just wanted to make sure, just,
no, this policy that we're working on is not going to touch this. That's listed like as an exemption. So those things aren't going to be included on this. This is really to address outside parties coming in.
okay,
And that whole prescription section is added to ensure that we wouldn't get ourselves into the legal situation where we had a third party provider giving medications in any circumstance.
okay. Thank you.
I think, under exceptions, it says the duties of the school nurse, athletic trainers, internal health professionals acting within their job description, so long as they notify parents of services provided, is the exemption and how it's worded. So I think that is covered exactly the way she was asking it to be. All right. Do I have any other community comment? Where is it? All right, we'll move on to item number 8, the closing statements. Dr. Garante, do you have any closing statements?
No closing statements, just clarification. In essence, I'm following the conversation that just unfolded. We will be moving to 3 phases of approval. So we will have a board approval that will be in concept. Then we will have a solicitor review of the board approval in concept. That will then be advertised to the public, and then we'll have official approval. So we'll move from 2 readings to, in essence, 3 readings, which would be, in essence, maybe 2 months for every policy that goes through.
Only if it's a policy that the board believes needs the solicitor review. If the board doesn't believe it needs solicitor review, it can go straight through to approval.
Are you clear on that, Mr. King?
I think so.
Yeah.
But it would need to be advertised, so nothing could be voted on the same night as it was proposed. It would still need to go to the next meeting at least.
True. Yeah, that's standard procedure. Where like, if we said, hey, we don't think this is going to need solicitor review, we send it to the board. The board's like, oh, we want solicitor review. They could have solicitor review. Then when it came back from solicitor review, the board could choose to either send it back to committee to apply the solicitor's changes, decide to apply the solicitor's changes themselves, or they can put it up for first reading. So then there would be public review before an actual vote.
So how does that process unfold for agenda items?
So like our agenda item would read something like, if we don't believe it needs to go to solicitor, if it's something that's just benign, we can be like, we just vote to, we would vote to send it to the board for approval. If we believe it needs solicitor review, we would vote to say, hey, we're sending it to the board to approve solicitor review. So it would depend on how it reaches the board. And then the board has the freedom to do with whatever they want with it after they get it. I mean, if we don't think it needs solicitor review, but the majority of the board then thinks it needs solicitor review, they could then send it to the solicitor anyway. We won't have the committee won't have the power to send it directly to solicitor anymore. It would have to go through the board to go to solicitor.
So does that decision get made at a board meeting?
That would be at a board meeting, yes.
So we're back to the 3 phases.
We're back to 3 phase if it needs solicitor review.
And then that just repeats itself for any policies that would currently be on the books as well.
Yes. All right, Mr. Wardle, do you have any comments?
None specifically. I am concerned in the mental health section. I do think we need to seriously consider some work on number 4. Being a former teacher, if we remove services because the student is in dire straits, and we start removing things because their academic performance is not what it needs to be, we may be their only lifeline they have. And I'm very concerned that us removing services before something else is in place immediately would be a disservice to the student because they may come to school for counseling, and if they don't get it, I would fear that they would be in a worse situation. And if we're going to base that only on academics, we don't know what else is going on in their mind. That's the second bullet under number 4. I just hope we will relook at that. And
Yeah, like the
I have fear that when we start suspending services, that we are doing the students a disservice.
I don't think it says suspend the service in there. I think it just says services must be monitored, and if students' academic performance is negatively impacted due to the missed class time, service must be reevaluated and maybe suspended, discontinued, or another solution can be reached. And all changes still have to be approved by the parent. So that leaves it open for the administration to say, hey, his time missed from math class, which might only be maybe 1 class a month, is negatively impacting his math class. Maybe we shouldn't have him miss math class. Maybe it should be another class that he's stronger at so that we can facilitate his learning environment better. So this wouldn't be an instant suspension. This would be, let's have this conversation with the parent and get to a point where we're doing the best thing for the student. So the student is gaining the learning that they need, they're gaining the knowledge they need, but they're also getting the support they need. So that particular item opens it up for that discussion to happen, and it's just triggered by a performance evaluation. That's just the trigger. And I think IEPs have similar types of triggers in where if you are failing to meet a certain performance, that automatically triggers another meeting with the parent to figure out, what can we do better? How can we better assist and support this child? And that's what we're doing here is we're putting that guideline in that, hey, if there is a call out that their academic performance is decreasing in areas, let's look at where we can do to help them achieve that. And that doesn't necessarily mean suspension of the service. It could just mean we move the service to later in the day on a different class because they're weaker at one class and stronger at another class. And it'd be best if they miss the stronger time versus continuing to fall behind on the weaker time. Does that make sense?
Yes, I don't want them to lose their counseling.
Well, neither do I.
Yeah.
I mean, counseling is,
in this service.
yeah, counseling is pretty important. All right. Julie, do you have any?
I do. I'd just like to comment on the fact that we've been at this for just over a year now. Our very first meeting was on June 17th of last year. And when we started, we found that we had 249 policies and 7 were up to date. 2 were legally behind schedule that are supposed to be reviewed every year. We've gotten one of those up to just not been reviewed. There is another one that we had never had as a district. We did address this one during one meeting. It seemed like a rather simple policy. We had suggested some changes, and a request was made by the president to send it to the solicitor. And then from there, we as a policy committee did not vote to send that to the solicitor, but it maybe didn't go, or based on when that happened, maybe it was invited before we had our solicitor in place. So that being said, I would suggest that as the board, policy 830.1 to be compliant with all should just be addressed and handled. It could be done without the policy committee even recommending it. It should be done. It should be put on the agenda for the next time to have a first reading or have to be voted. Now we've changed the rules, so it will have to be voted on to be sent to the solicitor if it hadn't already been sent. So I think that should be handled right away. But I did just want to say thank you for all your work that you put in. I think if someone else were in this position, that would have been a lot more solicitor bills racked up at this point. And I think we've done a lot of valuable work, and I think there's a lot more to be done. I would say the DIG committee is no longer going to be meeting, I suppose. That will be voted on tonight to be dissolved. And that will be a half-hour session. A half hour, as you can see, is just not very long to work on these policies. We could potentially, the board could choose to move the DIG time frame to policy as well, or to another use if they find it to be, there's something else that should be used for. But I think that's something that the board could consider as well, so that the policy committee can move some of these things through and get our school district up to recommended dates on our policies.
Thank you. I'll take that in consideration when making the next agenda for the policy committee. David, do you have anything?
I do not.
Mr. Corman, do you want to move forward with 004 at the next meeting, just for approval, since that's already been presented at this committee, solicitor reviewed, and is ready to roll, so we can be in compliance for September?
You actually have, Dr. Grante, you actually have the ability to put a policy up to the board without the committee. That's already in our, so if you wanted to do that, you could just do that. You wouldn't need to have the committee's approval.
Gotcha, thank you.
Yeah, because I think that's still in our policy where the committee can make and develop policies, but we never changed anything that kept you from making or recommending a policy. All right. I would like to just say thank you for everybody that came out tonight for the policy committee meeting. I'd like to give a special thanks to Dr. Garante for everything he's doing, and to the solicitor, Mr. King. Thank you very much for all the help that you guys have been giving to the school and this committee. And do I have a motion to end the meeting?
Motion to adjourn.
Second. Anybody opposed? All right, we're ending. Thank you.
Time is 7:08. I would ask the board members to take their seats so we can begin the committee of the whole shortly, please. Good evening. Time is 7:11. I'd like to welcome everyone to the committee of the whole. I apologize for the lateness of the meeting. Start at 7. I'd like to call the meeting to order at this time. Do we have any public comment for the committee of the whole? Hearing none, I believe we have a presentation by BSEA leadership to be given during the committee of the whole time. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. It's great to be back with you for the last staff update of the 2024-2025 school year. My name is Lauren Hedrick, high school social studies teacher, and I'm president of the Big Spring Education Association. For the past 2 years, BSEA has organized monthly updates for the board to highlight students and staff accomplishments in all of our buildings. We hope these moments of sharing and reflection serve as inspiration as you continue to work tirelessly for the betterment of the entire district. Seeing initiatives in action, the effectiveness of our student learning experiences, and the dedication of the staff to support all students is invigorating for us as well. We look forward to continue to provide you those updates next year. In our all-staff meeting on May 30th, Dr. Garante encouraged us to unplug, enjoy time with the important people in your life, and rejuvenate. So we're ready to serve our students come August. I would like to briefly address each of his suggestions. First of all, unplug. In the spirit of that message, there are no formal slides tonight. Thank you for a few chuckles. I was nervous it was going to be crickets. We love what we do. We love working with students every day, from celebrating their successes and even walking with them through their challenges, sometimes doing both of those things on the same school day. A tear always comes to my eye at commencement, when the graduating class sings the alma mater together for the last time. This year, the voices of more than 70 staff members, also in their academic regalia, joined the chorus and sang loudly and proudly. It was a really great moment. For the high school staff in particular, commencement is the beginning of the chapter, the next chapter for our students in their lives, and it's a marker for us to signify another year done, another job done. After the intensity of the school year, all of the staff look forward to catching their breath and unplugging. Stepping away from the daily grind provides reflection on what it means to be a Bulldog and why we choose to be educators here. As the board has time this summer, we encourage you to do the same thing. Be proud of the work that you've done, catch your breath, and unplug just a little bit. Item number 2, time with the important people in your life. There were many celebrations at the end of the year for retirements. The colleagues with whom you...
I apologize.
Happens in class all the time, Mr. Ward. We'll talk after the meeting.
Definitely did not unplug.
He did not unplug. So the colleagues with whom you work become part of your extended family, correct? So we're thankful for all the retirees' service, their collaboration over the years, and of course their friendship. For the professional staff, many joyous occasions have already taken place, from new homes, finishing graduate programs, and fun fact, 3 staff weddings so far this summer that I know of. Congratulations, Mrs. Rob. So whether it's a weekend trip for a family reunion, meeting for lunch with your work bestie, lazy pool days with our kids.
That's my dad called.
Dad
is now being
Random story from a number of years ago, a student's cell phone went off and he said, "It's my mom." I said, "I'll take it." I'm like, "Hi, Mom, how are you?" So these days are the ones for the memory books. So we hope that your summer gatherings with family and friends are full of joyous laughter and memory making of your own. And rejuvenate, item number 3. Although this might sound contradictory to what I've been talking about, one of the ways the professional staff rejuvenates during the summer is through professional learning. We get excited over improving our practice, and we are truly continuous learners. Already this summer, dozens of staff members have participated in curriculum writing, learning to prepare for co-teaching at the secondary level. 4th and 5th grade teachers, along with secondary science, participating in 2 days of learning with Open Science, experiencing from the student's point of view to best inform their practice for next year. Kindergarten for 3rd grade teachers spent 2 days on various STEELS items. And a quick side note, the advanced planning on the part of Mrs. Donato to ensure that Big Spring was ready to implement the STEELS standards well ahead of the Commonwealth's requirements has paid off. Content and role-specific professional learning has already been completed by reading interventionists, the math department, and the music department. Learning will continue through July and August, and we'll give you more updates on those when we come back together for more board updates. Our challenge for you, if we think about that rejuvenation and how that's connected to learning, think about what's some learning on your own that you've been wanting to do. Go to the driving range and work on that golf swing. Finally read the book that's been on the shelf forever. Does everyone have one of those books? I have several. Break out that hobby or that passion of yours. Do it, jump in, and you'll be amazed how much you'll rejuvenate yourself as a result. So on behalf of the Big Spring Education Association, we thank each and every one of you for your service to the district and the many ways that you support our students, our community, and from our perspective, the staff. We look forward to continuing to collaborate with you and district administration to keep moving forward to continue to be ever, always strong. Happy summer to all.
I want to thank you, but also thank the SEA for their great relationship. And I say the word great, that you are there for our students on a day-to-day basis. You mentioned the job that you have. It's not a job, it's a passion. It's a passion every day to come in and make a difference. To work with our students, no matter what their background, no matter what they come to you with, and sometimes it's a big challenge, I know that. But I think each day is an opportunity to make Big Spring proud. And you do that every day. And we thank you, each of you. I hope you can rejuvenate over the summer and come back with a renewed sense of why you do what you do in education. And make sure that the students know that you care. If nothing else, I was fortunate enough to be coming back from a wedding anniversary, it was a restaurant, and almost ceilings were and this guy said, "You were my teacher 14 years ago." I was shocked. He said, "In 2012, and I'm like, "Can you help me with the name?" And he said, "Yeah." He wasn't the greatest, but I'll tell you what, he's now working on the electric power lines. He said, "You're the best teacher I had." So you never know the difference you're making, whether it's in kindergarten or as a senior. Those students need your support, need your caringness, and need your love. Thank you so much for what you do. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ward.
Thank you for your presentation. We look forward to seeing you in the fall. Do we have any other items for committee of the whole at this time? Hearing none, I'll adjourn the committee of the whole. At this time, do I have a motion, please? Motion, Mr. Myers. Do I have a second? Second, Mr. Shea. There is no discussion. On the second, a negative or abstaining, I declare the committee of the whole adjourned. And I do apologize for my father calling me twice. That's what happens when you don't